So today we're going to be debunking some myths about autism. Apparently, there are people in our comments section that still believe this myth. This one really hurts. The examples in this video are from our home to yours because we have 2 little boys who are autistic. And the last myth that we'll be debunking, Hollywood always gets wrong. The first myth is autism is a disease. People actually think this, but it's not disease. It's not cancer. It's not something that you can just get randomly. It's something that you have your whole life that you're born with, and it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. Even though that's not my favorite word, that is the official word for it and description for autism spectrum disorder, which it is a spectrum. Please keep that in mind as we're talking about autism. Keep in mind, it's a spectrum. When you meet one child with autism, you met one child with autism. The second myth is something that a lot of people are trying to find, and that is a cure for autism. People actually think that autism can be cured. Let me tell you a little bit about my boys. Ezra is our happiest child. He has so much fun, and he's so much fun to be with. His laugh will light up a room, and you can't help but laugh with him. And Simon is so fascinated by what people do and why they do things. He will talk your ear off about his friends and their names and what they did that day. He's incredibly social, and both of these boys are complete joys in our family. Now, I'm not saying it's all butterflies and roses all the time. Sometimes there are hard times, but you have hard times with neurotypical kids too. And please, if you're a parent or a caregiver or teacher of a child who's autistic, stop trying to make them not autistic. You'll save yourself a lot of time, money, and energy, and you'll actually help the child by supporting them as an autistic individual instead of trying to find some cure out there or trying to change them. Love them unconditionally for who they are, and you will see miracles happen. Things that you never thought they would do, they'll do. I promise you that individual will be able to fly if you just don't cut their wings, and you'll help them gain more autonomy and independence in their life. We talk about this a lot in our ASD club, where we get on a weekly Zoom call and we talk to autistic adults who are super smart and have amazing abilities, and professionals who do Q&As with us. So you can actually ask a professional a question, and also a lot of parents of autistic kids. And we all get together in a positive way, in a safe setting, and we ask our questions and get them answered. Be sure to check that out in the link in the description below, and I'd love to see your face on the next call. The third myth is that some people think that this is actually just a childhood condition and that you grow out of autism. I don't know why people think that is completely not true. It's actually been scientifically proven that autism starts in the 2nd trimester. And if you don't believe me, check out this video here where we actually talk to a doctor who explains the evidence and the data about that. The fourth myth is that all autistic people have learning disabilities, which is totally not true, because my son Simon, who's diagnosed with level 1 autism, is also diagnosed, on the paperwork says no intellectual delay. It's on there. And so Simon is very different than my son Ezra in that regard. Even though they both have the diagnosis of autism, Simon has no intellectual delay, and Ezra does have an intellectual delay. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't know what's happening, but it could mean that he has a hard time communicating that he understands. There are actually quite a few autistic people who do really well academically, and sometimes they're actually not diagnosed until a lot later in life because of that factor. Myth 5 is that autism is really only in boys. Please believe that this is not true. We actually interviewed, and the video is right here, 2 amazing autistic adults who happen to be women. What do you know? I love what they had to share about their signs of autism and how they were a little bit different than your kind of classic signs of autism that you usually see in someone like Ezra. But someone like Simon or someone like these 2 girls that we interviewed, they're just on a different place of the spectrum than Ezra is. Some of these signs that they mentioned that they experienced in their life were OCD, ADHD, which kind of covered up their autism and was some of the reasons why they didn't get diagnosed until later in life, but also depression and social anxiety that were just more obvious for people to see. So people saw that. They saw the social anxiety, they saw the perfectionism, they saw the depression, and it wasn't until they were actually diagnosed with autism that they started getting answers and more understanding in their life. Keep that in mind, especially if you have a child or someone that you're taking care of who has some signs of autism. take your concerns to a pediatrician. I mean, what can happen? Maybe they'll get assessed and they're not autistic. That's good to know for sure anyway. There are so many girls that fall through the cracks, especially in childhood. Honestly, a lot of them are really good at masking, so that can happen too. And if you don't know what masking is, please check out this video right here, 12 signs of autism masking. The sixth myth is that autistic people can't feel empathy. Now, I really want to discuss this one because out of all the interviews that I've had with autistic adults and so many comments on this channel from autistic people, I really feel like it's kind of the opposite. I feel like a lot of autistic individuals feel so much empathy that it's difficult for them to communicate. Now, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Like, do you know autistic people who are affectionate and empathetic? Are you one of those people? Put in the comments how you feel. Remember, it's okay to share because you never know who your comment might bless. I know with my family, with my 2 kids that are autistic, I see their empathy just in different ways. And they might not understand like right at first, especially Simon. Simon will kind of have a little delay, and he has processing delay, so it's completely understandable that he may need a little bit more time as he is like understanding social cues. And I'll see him just kind of take a step back and review a situation in a family, what's happening, but he will show empathy. He will care if someone is sad, if someone is upset, and he'll try to help them. Ezra will socially connect in his own way as well. A lot of times I will put him to bed and I'll sit in his safety bed. By the way, this is his safety bed video here. He actually broke 5 safety beds before we got him this amazing one that will keep him safe at night so he doesn't, escape and we don't get a knock at our door with someone bringing him back. We're not going to talk about that. But we are going to talk about him showing compassion and social connection. So I'll be in his safety bed at night, putting him to bed. We'll sing a song if he likes it. Sometimes lately he hasn't been liking me singing songs to him. I don't know, he's getting old. He's getting older, so maybe he doesn't care as much about that. But we'll say a prayer and we'll practice his spelling. And usually I'll do a little lesson with that. He really likes history and science. He really likes those subjects. So I'll open up my book and start teaching to him and show him pictures on my phone of what we're learning, and he will connect with me socially that way. As a mother, I recognize that both Ezra and Simon have empathy and they connect socially on their own level at their own time, and especially when they're not forced to. If you're wondering if your child is possibly autistic, please see a professional. But while you're waiting for that, because sometimes the waiting lists are really long, you can click the link in the description below for an absolutely free guide called 12 Most Common Signs of Autism. Number 7, autistic people can't be independent. This one just hurts my heart because I know of some autistic people who have a hard time living by themselves, who need support of another person. So putting that expectation on the entire spectrum of autism is just not fair, and it's a myth that we need to debunk today. Our son Simon is incredibly independent. It's actually a problem because he can be super independent, way more than a 4-year-old probably should. He will go and just like grab a knife and start cutting the cheese, and I'm like, hold on. And I've never even taught him how to slice cheese with a knife. He just goes for it. He is really good at dressing himself, brushing his own teeth, putting on his own shoes, even tying his shoes. He's fairly good at that now. And so he's learning fast. And I can see Simon as a very independent adult someday. He's a very independent 4-year-old right now. Ezra, on the other hand, may need more support, and that's okay. He has been diagnosed with level 3 autism, which the levels of autism don't actually represent the severity of autism. They just represent how much support you need. So this can actually change throughout someone's life. When Simon was diagnosed, he was actually diagnosed with level 2 autism in the communication category and level 1 autism in the repetitive movement category. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we explain it right here with the doctor, and he explains the different levels of autism, what they mean, and really goes into detail about them. But keep in mind that when you meet an autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And so Simon and Ezra, both as brothers in our family, have taught us so much, especially about the whole spectrum of autism. Now, here is an analogy that really helped me understand and helped enlighten my mind of, okay, what the spectrum could possibly mean. Look at all these shades of green. So many. And yet if I pointed to this color and was like, what color is this? You'd say, well, green. You might describe it after, but the color is green. And this color over here is also green. And yet they look very different from each other. This is a very simplified way to describe it. It might not be the best, but when I heard this analogy, I realized that can be compared to my autistic boys. They're both autistic. They're both the color green, metaphorically. And yet, when you look at each color differently, you realize those are very different colors. The next myth is autism is rare. I don't know how anyone can believe this, but people online actually do. And so it's good to be said. Right now in the United States, if you took all of the children under 8, 1 in 36 of them would be autistic with a diagnosis of autism. That's a big deal, and it's not rare. Autism is on the rise, but so is autism awareness. And since more diagnoses for children means more support, I think that's a good thing. Number 9. This one really, really hurts. Really hurts. And I thought that it was a myth that was debunked a long time ago. I thought for sure only people in like 50s and 60s believed this, and then towards the 70s and 80s we kind of got smarter. Well, apparently there are people in our comments section that still believe this myth. Autism is caused by bad parenting. I don't know how in the world someone could look at a family and think that a neurodevelopment disorder is caused by bad parenting. This is completely not true. And I hope that everyone listening knows that it's not true, but just in case if there's anyone out there that still is hanging on to this very, very old belief, please listen to my next words. The parents and caregivers of those who are autistic need the support as much as those autistic people, because they're the ones working with them, showing that unconditional love, supporting them, and they need your support too, not your judgment, not your harassment. The next myth is that autism is caused by one single factor. Now, I'm not going to go into how many different things people think cause autism. Not going to go into that. We did a video right here you can check out if you're really interested in this subject. We talked to a doctor, we talked about facts, talked about studies, talked about data, and it was really enlightening. Honestly, my husband and I learned a lot when we interviewed him, and we show a lot of our kids in this video as well. So please stop blaming one thing for autism. Myth 11 is autistic people always want to be alone. This is not true for either one of my boys, and they're both autistic. So this is a myth. Now, if you have a child in your classroom or at your church class or in your home who likes to be alone, they probably need breaks, and don't we all? So support them and let them have alone time and let them have breaks that they need. But please don't just put them by themselves all the time thinking that that's what they want. One thing that I've noticed with my son Simon is that he's very, very capable of learning. Very capable. But I have to give him those opportunities to learn. I shouldn't just put him in a difficult situation where he may not understand the social expectation in that social environment. You can teach your child, hey, if someone says this, what could you say? Or what do you think they mean when they say this? You can practice facial expressions. You can practice social things. Talk about different idioms and what they mean so that it's not this huge puzzle for them and hard thing to figure out when they get into a social situation like at school with peers. When my family and I lived in an RV full-time, yes, 5 kids in an RV and 2 are autistic, it was really fun. You should definitely subscribe. But when we lived in an RV full-time, when we visited all the national parks, my kids loved being in that RV. I think one reason too was because it was familiar to them. But when we were in that RV, I noticed that they really connected with us. They didn't want to be alone. They didn't try to run away from us and go in a corner. They liked being with the family. They enjoyed it. I was worried about that. I thought that being in an RV in like really close quarters with 7 people would be difficult because no one would have privacy except for the bathroom, right? And I thought my autistic kids especially would really need their private space. Well, they did really, really well. They loved being with our family. The very last myth, the one that Hollywood always gets wrong, is that autistic people are always savants. Now, it's true that there are some savants who are autistic. Actually, a lot of these people throughout history are thought of to most likely be autistic. Let's scratch that all out. Let's focus on your kids or on your children who you're taking care of in your class or you're being a caregiver for. Do not expect them to have some special skill that they can just show off, because it's super unfair to put that expectation on them. This is a myth, and it's a very small percentage of autistic people that are actually savants, who actually can memorize 35,000 digits of pi. I love that these people can get attention for their abilities. I love it. And especially if they want it, they should be able to, perform, show off. They should be able to do that, because neurotypical people can show off and perform. So why shouldn't autistic people if they want to? Ezra has a special ability to just laugh even during a hard situation. Even during a situation where people are stressed out in the room or in the family, and he'll just laugh, and he'll make us all laugh with him. That doesn't qualify him for a savant, and yet it's a special ability that he has, and that's a blessing in our family. Here are 5 fake signs of autism, and here's our autism playlist. And remember, if you have an autistic child, you're in good company.